Hi, I'm Kent. In this video, I'm going to add some mason stains to my base glaze to make a colored glaze. I guess I've been doing YouTube for a while, because I thought I actually made this video before, but apparently I haven't. I went back and looked at my catalog. I did once before make a black glaze using some black mason stain, but I never tested using varying percentages of mason stains in my glaze. I did test this in my clay body and my slip in particular. That made some very cool different colored clays, but I never tried it in my glaze. That's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to add varying percentages of mason stain into my glaze itself. That should let me change the intensity of the color in the glaze. Let's try it out. I think I have everything we're going to need for this experiment. The star of the show is going to be this mason stain. The number is 6288. I also have a tub here full of Joe Thompson's from This Old Forge Creations base glaze. This here has a little bit of titanium dioxide as an opacifier, but otherwise is just a regular glaze. This will fire at cone 6, which I've been doing. I have my immersion blender and the attachment head. I actually just mixed up this glaze, some clean water. I have a bunch of bisque pots I'm going to use for tests. These are actually small little cups. I have my scales here off to the side, and then I have a container that I'm going to use for the glaze itself that I'm going to mix up. So what's the plan? Well, for the mason stain glaze, I'm going to take some of the base glaze and put it into this tub. I think I'm going to want it maybe 2/3 of the way full. I will then weigh that and see how much glaze is in there. I'll do some math, and then I'm going to add in a little bit of mason stain, dip a pot, see how much glaze I used, add a little bit more mason stain, dip the next pot, etc. I want to do 0.5%, 1%, 2%, and 4% of mason stain relative to the dry weight of the glaze ingredients in here. So I'll need to subtract out the water that I put in. So that'll be the color. I'm also going to go ahead and glaze the inside of these since they are small little cups. For that, I'm just going to use the base glaze straight up. So let me go ahead and do that. I will glaze the inside of these and the rims down a little bit. We'll then work on making the colored glaze using the mason stain. All right, so I've got a tiny little measuring cup here. I'm going to dip some of the glaze out, pour it in, swirl it around, and then dump it back out. Not quite enough. So there's the inside glaze. I'm going to go down, maybe 1/4 of the way. All right, there's the inside. We'll do the other 3. I made a bit of the mess of the outside of this one, so I just cleaned that up, but I'm going to dump the rim anyways. I have done very, very few things that are not planters, so I'm not very good at pouring, swirling it around and pouring it back out, so this will be good practice. There are 4 pots with the insides done with just the base glaze and the rims. So now I want to put some glaze into this container here. So I have no idea how much that is, so let's go ahead and measure it. All right, so I got an empty container here, so we can tear that out. I think it's about 50 grams. And we can put this guy over here. And we got 1543. All right, so obviously this is the water plus the dry ingredients, so we need to back out how much dry ingredients are in here. All right, I did some math that I won't bore you with, and I wound up with 829 grams of dry ingredients here. So we'll call it 830. So now what I want to do is add in mason stain. So I want to start with 0.5% of mason stain by dry weight. So that is a touch over 4 grams. So we'll go ahead and add 4 grams of mason stain into here. All right, so for this one I'll use my high precision scale. All right, there's 4 grams exactly. So now I'll take this and dump it in. And now I need to blend this up. Just to contain the splatters, I'll take a piece of paper towel and put it over the top. And we'll give this a good mix. All right, so this is 0.5%. So let's take the first pot and have it go for a swim. Do all but the last bit on the bottom here, just in case it decides to run. All right, let's see how much glaze we use to see if we need to take that into account. So we're at 1528, we were at 1543 before, that includes the water. So that to me tells me that I probably don't need to worry about the glaze that we're using in these small batches. The percentages will be slightly off, but since I'm doing basically doublings of the amount of mason stain, I think we will be okay. So this already has 0.5%, which was 4 grams. So to get it to 1%, I need to add another 4 grams. So that will give me 8%. Next spot, same thing. So we're at 1%, which was 8 grams. So now we want to get to 2%, which means we need another 8 grams. Next spot, into 2%. All right, and to get the 2% up to 4%, I need 16 more grams of mason stain. And one more mix. Last pot into 4%. So from where we started, we're definitely getting some color. So this was the original glaze, and this is where we are now. It's got that greenish tint to it. So based on my test results, I can either just use this straight up as 4%. If I wanted to dilute it, I can just add twice as much base glaze back into it. That would get me to 2% or somewhere in between. Likewise, if I want to go stronger, I can just go ahead and add more mason stain directly into this. And here are the glazed pots. So this one here is the 0.5%, 1%, 2%, and 4%. There's a bit of variation in color even in this still damp glaze. Of course, looking at glaze in its unfired form is basically useless. The whole point is to fire it and get all those vivid colors. So I'm gonna let these dry, I'll load them into my next glaze firing, and then you guys can time travel and we'll get a look at the finished results. The 0.5% is very, very faint. I have a test towel here, so you can compare these two. You can see there's a little bit of color in there. I'm not sure if it's coming through in the camera very well, but there's a little bit of color in there. A little bit more here. And then when we're getting up here to the 2% and the 4%, we're actually getting much more vibrant colors. The 4% I think is closer to the one I was actually going for. The straight up base glaze on the inside worked out just fine. I got a little bit coming in on the inside, which works out pretty well. Here you can see there's a variation between the two different color glazes. On the outside, it's not really present so much. You can't really tell where I overlapped it for these. Here you can see a little bit more. And here, definitely much more. You can see the striking line between where it got double dipped between the base glaze and the color versus the bottom here is just the colored glaze. I'm not sure what I think about the overlap. I think it's reasonable, but I suspect just straight up color would be good. Now, what do you think? What's your favorite color, and what do you think about the overlap between the base and the mason stain glaze versus just using the mason stain glaze? It's been a while since I've made some of these tiny pots, and I really miss them. I think they're actually a great size to do these types of tests. Testing on my test tiles works just fine, but they're relatively tiny and not as much fun. So there's a couple of things I want to still try. I might go up with an even higher percentage, and I'll probably test out different strategies for glazing the inside and the outside. And I also have several other different mason stains that I've used in previous videos. I want to go ahead and mix up some batches with those and see how they look. The other thing I want to try is the base glaze that I use here has a little bit of titanium dioxide in it as an opacifier. I'm curious if I mixed up a batch without the opacifier in it and just used the mason stain, what that would look like. So I'll probably try that as well. Hope you found that interesting. Do let me know which one's your favorite. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Thanks.